2 hours nonstop NBA DFS conversation. It starts now. We take you up to lock. It's a 9-game slate, not messing around. Big boy slate for sure. We have Kyle Murray, Taylor Smith, Kevin Roth. They're coming in for crunch time about 6:15, 6:20. Take you all the way up to lock. For now, for the next hour and 15 minutes, it's myself, TJ Zwarich. You guys know TJ, one of the greatest DFS players in all of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada. He would say he is the best, but I'm leaving a little bit of wiggle room.
Undisputed.
Just taking on all comers. I know you're on a hot streak. You have some tickets in the Millie this weekend, the 4-4-4-4. So good luck on that. That's in the football. Tonight we're talking a little bit of basketball, but I did ask you pre-show. I tweeted this out, and the people are on fire on the old Twitter. It is Ben Stiller's 58th birthday. Shout out to Ben Stiller. And I asked what your favorite Ben Stiller movie was. You said you have a favorite, a clear-cut favorite. Chat, let me know too. What is your favorite in chat? And then what's your sneaky underdog one that gets no respect?
Clear-cut favorite is definitely Dodgeball. Classic, all-time comedy film. You brought up Mystery Men pre-show as like what you thought was going to be my sneaky one, and I agree.
I thought for sure.
That's a great pick. Mystery Men's a great movie, but no, for me it's Starsky and Hutch. I love Starsky and Hutch, and it never gets brought up too much because it's a remake, right? It's been done a few times, but Owen Wilson.
It was a TV show. Yeah, it was a TV show that was in the 70s that was turned into a movie. Yeah, I don't think there was ever a Starsky and Hutch movie, but it was a TV show that was popular in I think the 70s. But go ahead.
And then like the Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson as Starsky and Hutch. It's fantastic. And then of course Zoolander is wonderful.
I think Snoop Dogg's in it too, in Starsky and Hutch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I just know the GIF. One of everybody's favorite GIF is the "Do It," right? That's all I got. I don't know what else we got from there. Maybe Vince Vaughn. Isn't Vince Vaughn in it too? Am I making that up?
No, you got it.
Right.
Tropic Thunder, a great one as well.
Yeah, I think that's the chalk. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I put at number one. My sneaky one that like I wouldn't recommend to most people, but like if you like it, you'll love it. Is Greenberg, but you have to be a certain kind of person to like it, I think. But it's not for everybody, for the masses, I guess. But I think it's an underrated movie that basically nobody has seen.
Meet the Parents, a classic.
Yeah. Meet the Fockers was his worst movie, I believe. Pretty sure Meet the Fockers was his worst. I think I put it last in the list. Is the chat participating? I'm just pulling it up now. He was not in Naked Gun. I don't know, Stan, that you're thinking of Leslie Nielsen or something, or O.J. Simpson. He was not in that. Happy Gilmore is not in the list because he was only in like 2 scenes. He was in 2 great scenes, but he was an Anchorman too. But it's not.
I was gonna say that'd be like calling Anchorman a Ben Stiller movie.
Yeah, like then it's like an everybody movie because everybody's an Anchorman. Happy Gilmore does not count. Yeah, Happy Gilmore does not count. Good scenes. Along Came Polly made the list. The list kind of fell off a little faster than I thought. But and like
Night at the Museum.
I haven't seen it. Like I feel like that's for children. I don't know. Is that for adults too? I never saw it. Maybe that's something you watch with your kids. I don't know. And Dan Bach throughout Madagascar, which I've never seen, but I'm sure it's good for what it is, but I can't speak to it. Have you seen Madagascar?
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't. I've not seen Madagascar.
I don't besmirch animated movies like you do, Dean.
I didn't besmirch. Was that a besmirching?
You're always besmirching animation.
I'm not anti-animation. I think it's for kids, isn't it? Isn't Madagascar for kids?
Yeah, I mean, most family movies have jokes for the adults and like layers to them, and so they're different movies for the kids as they are for the adults. Like family movies can still be awesome for adults.
Well, like The Simpsons did that really, really well many years ago, mostly, but that was kind of their thing where they had the double layer jokes, right? But I don't know. I can't speak to the Madagascar, so maybe it's good. I'm sure it's good for what it is, but that's not a besmirch. In the chat, Frozen is for children, and it is the GOAT. I've not seen. Have you seen Frozen? Like, you probably have, right?
Many times.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Is that the one with Fiona? Is that the character's name? Or am I in the wrong? It's combined movies.
Elsa.
Yeah. Oh, Fiona's Shrek, right?
Yeah.
I had to see Shrek in a punishment. But okay, let's talk about tonight's big boy slates in the association. LeBron is questionable. I know you're shocked, but he is questionable. Some Bulls are questionable. Levine, DeRozan, Anthony Edwards, highly questionable. I guess that's doubtful. Victor Wembanyama, he's also questionable. He's played every single game so far this year. This is the front half of a back-to-back, so maybe he rests tonight. We'll see. Stay tuned on that. As far as back-to-backs, New York is on the front half. The Spurs are on the front half. Back half, Lakers, they didn't get pushed very hard. Pistons, they didn't push the Lakers very hard. The Jazz and the Clippers. Clippers also involved in a bit of a blowout there of the Kings. The Jazz did give Q tags to Jeremy Clarkson and I believe Kelly O, right? Didn't Kelly O am I making that up? I thought Kelly O got a Q tag as well.
He did.
Marketing still out. Screenshot as far as the slate. One interesting thing, I think, 9-gamer, right? 7 of the 9 games are between 7:30 and 8 o'clock, right? There's one really, really late game. And seriously, I know they're not ever going to do it. Nobody's going to listen to me. But why just cut off the last game? We don't need it. Like, let's like end the slate 8 o'clock. That'd be amazing, right? Are you with me in that, TJ? We don't always agree. But how about that? Have I proposed with that one?
No, I like building in a little bit of a late night hammer into my lineups and keeping that in there.
Well, that's because you're on the West Coast, right? And like you don't.
No, I'm not. I'm an hour before Eastern time. I'm Central time right now.
Yeah, all right. So much my argument blew up my face. But like I like a sprint slate. Give me a sprint slate, and I want everything.
No, I like a hammer always.
I like the hammer, but also the hammer is kind of lame. Well, I guess Golden State's taking on the Clippers can be fun. And there's only one game at 7 o'clock. So, like, yeah, there's 9 games. 7 start 7:30, 8 o'clock, which is pretty interesting. It's really, really condensed in the middle. I don't think, you tell me, can we just ignore? I like to ignore the 1 7 o'clock game if I can. But the Blazers are playing Cleveland. And the Blazers, they bleed the fantasy points. So it could be a blowout if you want to bet on that, which is an interesting angle, I suppose. But yeah, what is your overview? Is that something you're considering? What are you doing today? Sometimes you're running out like 100 lineups, sometimes you're doing 20. What's the plan? What's the strategy?
So I'm only playing 1 today, actually. There were some really great NHL contests today, so I ran out 3 NHL teams, and then I'm doing like some football stuff as well. So I just decided to go 1 lineup for NBA today. Still kind of view the slate and if I were playing 150 lineups mold. But honestly, I'm just like also pretty tired. And that was the biggest factor, like decision into my factor. I'm just kind of tired. And so I saw I was on GrindersLive today and I thought, I kind of want to sit and build 1 lineup while I'm watching Crunch Time as opposed to scrambling and trying to redo a bunch of stuff with my pool and use Lineup HQ to optimize stuff. Like I just figured I want 1 today because been busy. Thursday's a big content day. 3 articles, and I might.
What do you get out there? Plug the articles. What'd you pump out today?
So NBA and NFL Prize Picks articles. So I got my top 4 plays on NBA Prize Picks, as well as my top 3 plays for Thursday night football game tonight. So those are both published up on the website.
These are premium or non-premium?
Totally free for the people.
Drop them in chat. Let's share it with the people. You get the links. Let's drop them in chat for the people. Give them some winners.
Up here. So I got the Prize Picks articles for NBA as well as NFL. And then I was on the the NFL expert survey today as well. Oh, geez, I got to pull up the YouTube chat, too. I haven't even hit the like button yet. I haven't hit the like button, Dean. Everybody else, while I'm hitting the like button right now, also go and hit the like button because I forgot to do it. It's understandable if you did.
Is it feeding time or something? The cat looks like it just wants some attention.
Yeah, I just want some attention. He's like the last 3 days, he's been really, really lovey-dovey, getting up all up in my grill, asking for cuddles and scratches. Just dropped the NBA one in chat. Got to find the NFL one here, and then I will pop that one in there too. And then I was on the NBA expert survey today. I was on RotoGrinders today with Blender this morning, and then I may end up actually being on the pre-lock show today as well.
Couple things. First of all, it would help if you're tired, a nap. It would be a great time to take a nap. 8:01 on the East Coast, so you don't have to worry. If the 10 o'clock game was something you don't have to worry about, you can go ahead and take a nap, worry-free, right?
Why would I take a nap at 8? I'll just go to bed.
Just like a 20-minute nap. Don't go too long.
I would never nap at 8 p.m. I would never nap at 8 p.m.
It's happened accidentally before, surely.
No, then I just, if I'm falling asleep at 8 p.m., I'm not waking back up.
What? You've never napped, like you never like fell asleep watching whatever at 8 o'clock and popped up at like 9:30, 10 and just like, okay, now I'm up for, like, all right, that happened. Let's keep going. Maybe we'll stay up a little later tonight. That's never happened before.
Nope. I just go back to bed.
And what time do you wake up officially? Like 4 a.m?
No, I like my sleep. I'll just wake up at a normal time.
So you'll sleep like 12 hours? 8 to 8?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'll sleep 12 hours like once a week.
I'm learning a lot.
I'll sleep like I'll get a good like 10 to 10 or 11 to 11 like once a week.
Mr. Gertz says 2 p.m. is the perfect nap time. That's a good nap time for sure.
Yes, that's as soon as my burnout always starts, is about 2 p.m. Get a quick nap, then I'm good for an evening of work.
And that's a lot of times when content is due, right? You want to finalize your content. You want us to have it done by 2 o'clock. Of course, you have to update it at some point, especially with the NBA. Hey, this is the other thing I want to ask you. You said you pumped out these Prize Picks articles. By chance, go along with it or not. Either way, did you happen to use the props and pick'em package to help lead some of your selections?
Absolutely. I am always using the RotoGrinders Fantasy Pick'em tool for Prize Picks, and I'm basing a lot of my picks on the win percentages. For NFL, I also compare them to the RotoGrinders projections, the Blitz projections, find the ones that have the biggest differential. That anytime I can get both of the projection sites to agree, I love it. And then for NBA, it's a little bit of what I just think is going to happen, and then a lot of that the model as well.
The props and pick'em package. Feel free to learn more about that. Check out the link in the description. I know the experts have been on fire. The model's been on fire. Up 38 units since mid-November. That's NFL, NHL, and NBA. There is football tonight as well. The Seahawks take on the Cowboys. They're both playing again on a Thursday night. The beta version of our new lineup building tool, SimLabs, it is here. It is still free. It's free while it's in beta. And now you can do Fanduel lineups, Fanduel and DraftKings. The SimLabs, what it does, it generates DFS lineups with the power of simulation and combining data from every aspect of the slate to churn out lineups that match your specific preferences. Just a few clicks if you want to do it large field, smaller field. If you want to be more ambitious or less ambitious as far as adding variance, you can get yourself hundreds of well-built correlated lineups ready to go for whatever contest type you want within seconds. Check out, again, the link in the description for SimLabs. Still free, DraftKings and FanDuel. All right, give me the screenshot here.
There's a couple people in chat just like, I'm saying, like, I don't want to give off, nobody's calling me out for this. This is probably just my anxiety thinking I'm being targeted when I'm not. They're just sharing their opinions that naps are good. But I just want it on the record. I'm pro nap, just not pro. Yeah. I'm after 7 p.m. I'm not napping. I'm just toughing it out until it's bedtime.
If you're planning on running for office, being anti-nap is a bad stance.
I'm pro nap. I'm pro nap.
Yeah. I just want to make it clear. Yeah, pro nap is that's the basis of my platform when I run. Okay. We're talking tonight's 9-game NBA DFS slate. And yes, I do know what Bebe's kids. We don't die, we multiply. There's a random reference for I saw that cartoon many, many years ago. Okay. So yeah, that's for like one person. Nobody else knows what I'm talking about, but it popped up in chat and I had to address it. Yeah. So TJ, give me the screenshot. What are we looking at as far as the slate? Another one that doesn't really have eye-popping value. There's some value in Minnesota. It's not amazing, but it's there. There's some really good matchups. It's just hard to fit all the stuff I want. What's your outlook as far as tonight's slate?
It's tough because, like, you talked about, can we just get rid of that 7 p.m. game? And, like, so in a single entry setting, I think I'm going to. I think I'm not going to play anybody from that 7 p.m. game. In MME, though, I don't think you can cross it off. And it's tough because usually when there's a slate this big, I love to just go, all right, it's 9 games. How can I make this 5 games? How can I make them 6 games? Trying to find a way to shorten the slate a little bit, condense my player pool. But you really can't do that with a single game on this slate because you look at Portland and Cleveland. Cleveland actually hasn't been that good defensively this year. We're used to them being a defensive powerhouse. They haven't been that this year, and they got a great matchup against Portland with some guys who are underpriced. Donovan Mitchell should be more expensive. Evan Mobley, he should be more expensive. Garland should be more expensive. Allen should be more expensive. So it's tough to just fade these guys. Even LeVert is getting a price tag where he's somewhat playable in tournaments. Brooklyn and Charlotte. Well, I don't really want to play many Charlotte players, but like Brooklyn gets a phenomenal matchup against Charlotte. They're getting some players back, but there's pieces of that team, maybe somebody like a Nick Claxton, who I'm very interested in. I can't just ignore the game. I don't want to stack it, but I can't ignore it. Detroit and the Knicks, same thing. I can cross out Detroit, but this is actually a great matchup for the Knicks. It's pace up. Detroit is terrible defensively. Randall, Brunson, Barrett, Mitch Robb, who's apparently playing 30 minutes every single night now. All of these guys could have great games today. So there's one of the sides we can't ignore. Indiana and Miami, one of the best games on the slate. Atlanta and Spurs, probably my favorite game on the slate. Lakers and OKC. AD's been smashing. SGA's in a great spot. Milwaukee and Chicago. I don't want to play any Milwaukee, but Chicago has DeRozan and Levine questionable in a pace-up spot against a terrible defense. Another potential spot for fantasy goodness. Utah and Minnesota. No Anthony Edwards, and Minnesota's in a great matchup. Fantasy goodness. And then finally, a late-night hammer where both these teams are on a back-to-back. We could potentially see some shenanigans in terms of people who might not play. You never know. We could end up getting a Clipper resting. And then on the Warrior side of things, they're already without Chris Paul and Andrew Wiggins. So guess what? They're interesting too. There's not a single game I feel like I can totally ignore on the slate.
And Gary Payton II, he's going to be out for a while. We only care about tonight and tonight only, but that's like 18 to 20 minutes or so gone. The Wiggins one came out in the middle of the day, and I happened to have my phone in my hand, and I did live bet Dario Saric over on points. I got him like 8.5, so I feel pretty good about that one. Taking advantage of the sports gambling. Well, you mentioned Edwards out. He's officially doubtful. We're expecting him to be out, but want to say there's still a chance, right? So you're telling me there's a chance. Tell me this. Give me the date. Tell me the last time the Pistons won a basketball game. Give me the month and date.
October 26th.
October 28th. Yeah.
Ah!
It's so bad.
Is it 15 games now? I should have gone 20. I was between 26th and 30. I should have gone split the middle with 28.
They were 2-1. They should have took a screenshot and posted it in Victory Lap. They were probably in the playoffs after 3 games, but they've now lost 15 games in a row. It's and there's just nothing they can do. Like there's no. It's like, oh well, they can play this guy. Well, no, it's just a big old mess in Detroit. Okay, let's do the game by game deal. Let's go around the horn. Knock out all the plays, talk about the 7 o'clock game. Chat, you have to hit that like button. Like, subscribe, notifications, turn them on. Why? Because then you know we go live. Okay. And also join the conversation as well, especially if it has to do with the game we're talking about. More likely we're going to join or bring that in. If there's a player we don't mention, it's a 9-gamer. Can't talk about everybody. Very first game we're talking about is the aforementioned Cavaliers. Cavaliers at home versus the Blazers. The Blazers, they are getting 12 points on the road in Cleveland. Portland is fully healthy, or as healthy as we've seen him in a while. Obviously, Robin Williams, he's not coming back. He's done so for the year. Anthony Simons, we haven't seen just yet. And Cleveland is about as healthy as we're going to see him too. Just no Dean Wade. But, the matchup is pretty good. You got to pay for some of these guys. They keep bumping up Mobley a little bit here and there, but I think there's still some meat in that bone. Garland seems a tick too cheap, but again, it's just trying to prioritize the plays we want. And also, how much do we want to lock in at 7 o'clock, hoping maybe – you don't know what's going to happen. Well, last night we saw Embiid was rolled out, out of nowhere. He had an illness. It didn't really work out for the Philly guys, but, that's the way you're supposed to play it as far as, jumping on a bunch of the Philadelphia players, process versus results. Portland, Cleveland,
that news came out less than 30 minutes before that game started, well after walk. What do you think the ownership was in the Millie? I had some tickets in the $2,500 Millie Maker yesterday too on DraftKings. What do you think the ownership on Paul Reed ended up as?
So people are paying attention to stuff much more than they used to, right? Because I remember this happened earlier in the year.
Because he didn't even start.
Yeah, I know, but he projects well, and yeah, I think it was also thought that Morris was going to start, but probably not play more than 20 minutes because he's old. I would say Reed's. It was which contest is this?
The $2,500 Millie Maker.
Were you in that?
Yeah, I had 2 tickets.
Okay. That was 40% up top, right? I think it was a million.
Yeah, it was like
yeah.
million at first, then 1,500, then 150,000, then 100,000. I finished like 45th, and it was like 5K.
Did you min cash?
Min cash was like 150 or like 180.
Okay. Yeah.
And I've like, so min cash was 4K. I finished like 45th, and it was 5K.
Nice. Congratulations. This is all your tickets from your MMA winnings. So I'm going to say it was like 40%. Yeah. I'm saying Paul Reed was 40%. It
was like 57%. I was shocked. Like him, Maxi, both like got over 50%. Tobias Harris was 50%. I was thankful because like I had Harris on one team, and on that same team had Paolo Banchero and Goga Patate. Like all my crap players were on one team. And then it was my only player in the early game on the other one was Cole Anthony. And that was the one that had Paul Reed and like, and a team that actually went well. So it was, it's nice when all of your crappy players are on one lineup and then all the good ones are on the other.
It is weird that, well, why would you not play Reed? Like, what's the upside of playing Morris? Like, what is the point?
But I did play Morris on. Oh, do you mean?
No, I mean as the coach. I'm saying like as the team. Like, why would you? What are you going to get out of Morris? Like, you know,
and like Bamba subbed in before Reed did in that game.
Yeah, you probably did. That was a sphincter clincher. It's like, oh no, where is Paul Reed? Get him in there. All right, back to Cleveland and Portland. I like Garland. I like Mobley, Lamp, Allen, Mitchell. If I have one big spend, is it going to be Mitchell? Probably not, but I really like him. Portland, by the way, especially on Fanduel, if you want those stocks, Portland is an incredible stocks opponent. They're top 3 as far as yielding blocks and steals. You know, those are kind of hard to predict, but a guy like Mobley can get 4 or 5. Same deal with Allen. Mitchell, a great steals guy. What do you have as far as Cleveland and the Blazers?
On the Blazers side of things, nobody I would touch in like a single entry or 3 entry max. If I'm MMEing, even maybe in a 20 max setting, like Brogdon, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Jordan, I think would be the only 3 that I'd be looking to consider. Everybody else I would X out entirely. But Brogdon, Grant, and Ayton, I think all of them are fine. We expect Cleveland to be good inside. They haven't been. Ayton should have minutes secure with them playing bigs all the time. On the Cleveland side of things, I just think like their top 4 are all kind of underpriced. So Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, Jarrett Allen, they're kind of all priced where if they have something close to a floor game, a median projection, you're fine. You're okay if you get 30 from Jarrett Allen. You're okay if you get 38 from Evan Mobley. If you get 34 from Darius Garland, great. Not great, but like fine. It's not going to burn you. You're muted right now.
If I tell you beforehand, if I say, listen, you're getting no more, no less, you're just not playing them. But I hear
you're not taking it, but like you're not really expecting less though. That's the thing. Then like that's kind of like a bad game. You know what I mean? And they're priced to the point where that's not going to burn your lineup. Whereas their ceilings, if I told you Darius Garland scores 50, that wouldn't shock you. That's not the expectation. That wouldn't shock you. Evan Mobley for 45, Jarrett Allen for 38. Donovan Mitchell for 50. These are all possibilities that are great ceilings at their prices. So I do think you've got to keep them in the mix. And in MME, they'd be great targets for tournaments. And then in single entry type stuff, if I land on them, I'm cool with it. And I'm not going to try and change my lineup, but they're not necessarily targets. Muted again. Double muted.
Oh my God. I'm going for the record. My bad. Bad job by me. I thought we had a good start, but so much for that, throwing it out the window. You're still pitching a perfect game, though. I won't mention it. Oh wait, I just did. Now it's jinxed, I suppose. But yeah. So
I'm a professional. I would never do that.
The cats are jumping on the keyboard as you say that. Yeah, any sort of tiebreaker and you're pushing it back, right? Like, you know, it's just like that's the general rule. I like Cleveland, but I won't force it. You know, to give myself an extra half hour. If you're only making one lineup, I assume that's the plan. But like you're happy to land on Mitchell and Mobley and those guys. Anything else that's worth saying as far as this game, or shall we move on to the 7:30 games?
No, I think we can move on to the 7:30 games. For what it's worth with Garland, like there's not much in his price tier that I could would potentially like better than him. So like, yes, tiebreaker goes to the later game, but if it's between Zach LaVine, if he plays Jordan Clarkson, if he plays Westbrook, DeRozan, Terry Rozier, Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I'm playing Garland over all of those guys regardless.
Yeah. But they got to be tiebreakers. And I don't think you're not playing Westbrook over Garland, I don't think. But I know what you're saying. It's got to be a legit tiebreaker. I'm not forcing the tiebreakers.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Charlotte and Brooklyn, 224 is the total. Brooklyn is a 9-point favorite here. Charlotte obviously still without LaMelo Ball. There's a chance that Brandon Miller doesn't play. He's currently questionable. Brooklyn is getting Cam Thomas back tonight. Royce O'Neal is questionable, but he's got a hip. And obviously Ben Simmons is out. Now, I just checked to see. We do have an if-then for if Royce O'Neal is out. Still, the only positive DK value would be Nick Claxton. And we also have an if-then for Charlotte if Miller happens to be out. The positive DK values we have would be Miles Bridges and Terry Rozier. This is the Bridges brothers, right? I didn't just kind of piece it together. They're playing against each other. And as far as Fanduel values, it would be, this is now under the understanding that Miller happens to be out. Miles Bridges, Mark Williams, Terry Rozier, and even Gordon Hayward. He's got a nice price over there.
Was that like a joking brothers thing?
No, I think they're brothers, right?
No, they're not related at all.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Oh, okay. It's been a terrible show for me. It's not a common last name.
These are not the Morris brothers. These are just two random dudes with two different last names who are both good at two same last names who are both good at basketball.
It's not the holidays. All right. Talk about Charlotte and Brooklyn as I bury my head in my face. Wait.
Oh, good stuff. So on the Charlotte side of things, I really don't have any interest unless Brandon Miller's out. It's a fine spot, but like only a 107 total. LaMelo Ball's out. I don't know how much like LaMelo Ball being out, I don't know how much that actually really is a bump up to everybody else. You know, he's such a great passer that I feel like he just makes that offense so much better when he's on the court. I feel like it's not really that big of a deal when he's out to these other guys. Rozier projects fine. If Brandon Miller's out, I think PJ Washington becomes very interesting. Chief talked about how PJ Washington would probably step into the starting lineup and play 30 plus minutes on the morning grind today if Brandon Miller's out. And so that would really be my only interest. If we get Miller out, play some PJ Washington, maybe a little Rozier. Bridges is fine. He's projecting very well, but I don't really want to play Bridges on a 20 games.
Which Bridges?
Slate. Miles. I don't really want to play Miles Bridges on a 9-game slate that like nearly 20% ownership. Brooklyn side of things, it's just really Nick Claxton for me. Like, this is obviously a great matchup, but they had been so injured and now they're finally starting to get healthy. Obviously, Simmons is still out. But if Royce O'Neal is out as well, I think Nick Claxton is just a absolutely fantastic play. And like, if we get Royce out, I think like he's maybe even in the cash game conversation.
Yeah, because Royce plays backup 5. I'm trying to see how many minutes difference. How many more minutes would they actually give to Claxton? Because we're giving him 30. And
I don't know that it would necessarily be more, but I think like maybe like 32. But I just feel like those 30 are a heck of a lot more secure. There's a lot less likelihood of that 30 becoming 24 because they go small.
Yeah, they run in Day'Ron Sharp for like 15 minutes or so. But yeah, Claxton, his ceiling is, I don't want to say his ceiling, but it's hard to expect much more than 30 minutes out of Claxton. But I think he can get the damage done in 30 minutes as well. I agree. Let's see if there's anything else of note. Ownership-wise, we're seeing what the note about Washington, I think, makes sense, right? Charlotte would just go big because they don't have a lot of depth. And they would go Rozier, Washington, Hayward, Bridges, Williams, which is like, so yeah, I think that's the way they would have to go. Just be a little bit bigger as far as their starting lineup. Be a bigger team against Brooklyn team. It's not very big. It's just a bunch of wings mostly. Cam Thomas first game back. Not playable, right? Is that fair to say? I mean, if you made 100 lineups tonight, would you play him?
No. I need to see his minutes first. Like, as long as I know he's back over 30 plus, I don't care the matchup. I'll always play Cam Thomas in 150 because he can just go for 50 real points in any game. So, but not until I see that he's playing some good minutes.
Let's see. Michael's saying Charlotte is relatively popping. Does Brooklyn not play good defense? I think they're like middle of the road, right? Defensively, Brooklyn. I don't think they stand out one way or the other. Pace-wise, they're pretty slow. They're about 22nd in pace. Their defensive ranking, I want to say they're actually 20th in defense. So yeah, not spectacular, but they play slow, so it kind of pushes them more back to the middle. Is that sort of where you're at? Brooklyn's kind of a more or less a neutral matchup. Is it on the whole?
Yeah, that's basically exactly. And they're not someone I go out of my way to target, but I'm not going to shy away from them either. You know what I just realized? Like 3 days ago,
Bridges brothers
Dean?
are not brothers.
No, not that. But I'm trying to make you feel better about all your mess ups today. So we're in a season-long league together for fantasy basketball, and I'm in second last in it right now.
Who's in first?
And I don't know. You're not. You're in like second.
What? Okay, you got me.
Yeah, you're in second. And so I was thinking, like, I don't really understand. Like, my team is fine. Yeah, I have a couple injuries that I've been dealing with, but like, I'm sure everybody's dealing with injuries. I had no idea. I've never seen this before. I had no idea that our league has unlimited injured list spots, and you're just allowed to keep putting your injured players on an injured list, even if they're only out for like a game. If they're like a game time decision, you can put them there.
You gotta manipulate the system.
And that was news to me. And so I realized that everybody else has like 20 plus players on their roster. And then I'm just sitting there with like 2 guys on my bench because everybody's injured. So that was pretty a pretty fun thing to learn. What are we going next though? We got Detroit and the Knicks.
I want to shout out Alan in chat. He's saying, please share your worst mistake in life to make me feel better. Yes, please do it. This is definitely on my list of worst mistakes, leaving the, being on mute twice in a span of like 2 minutes or so. I can't imagine, if nothing else, not the worst. It's on the Family Feud board of worst things I've ever done. But okay, let's knock out one more game. Let's move on. The Pacers take on Miami Heat. 238 is the total. You know what my worst mistake is? Growing the stupid mustache. It's going off tomorrow. I don't even know if you can see it because I'm not very manly. But there's one there. I swear. I just touched it. The Heat are 3-point favorites here versus the Pacers. Big boy number, 238. I don't know if you're sitting down or not, but Jimmy Butler is questionable. Stay tuned. That tends to fluctuate. But as of 5:35 on the East Coast, he's questionable. Bam Adebayo, he's got that hip, but he's available to play, as is Duncan Robinson with his thumb. We know Tyler Hero is out for a while. Indiana is pretty healthy with the exception of Jalen Smith. There's a chance TJ McConnell isn't available. There's a chance Isaiah Jackson isn't available. So they might be a little bit thin as far as backup fives, as far as backup bigs. Maybe that solidifies Turner a little bit. Obviously not a great matchup here versus Miami and Bam on the inside. But, potentially 2 bigs down. And I love Bam today. It's just I missed when Bam was like 7'8", 7'9". He's so expensive now, but he's justified it. He's been awesome, and I don't think he slows down tonight. What's your read as far as Indiana, Miami?
Yeah, so if Jimmy is in, then it's really just Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo for me. Those 2 guys on the Miami side, and that would be it. On the Indiana side, it'd be Tyrese Halliburton, and that'd be it. However, if we get Jimmy out, then Miami is my favorite team to target on the slate. Bam Adebayo, I think, would be my favorite player on the whole slate. I like Bam even if Jimmy's in. I happen to write his points number up on in my Prize Picks article that was included in there, and so I like Bam Adebayo today regardless. But if Jimmy's out, I think he's probably the best play on the slate, rivaling Karl Anthony Towns at worst. I also would just want to load up on the entire team: Kyle Lowry, Jaime Jaquez, Josh Richardson, Caleb Martin. All of these guys I'd be wanting to load up on. Highsmith is back, so I think that takes away Kevin Love. I don't know if he'd be in play. I think I'd have to see if he pops back into the starting lineup. But he's probably still going to play low 20 minutes. I don't think I'd go there. But Adebayo, Jaquez, Lowry, Richardson, Martin, if Butler's out, and then if Butler's in, just going to be Butler and Adebayo for me. And then on the Indiana side of things,
just want to touch off for a second. I wanted to the if then we have for Jimmy Butler. Just figure I'd spread it before you jumped Indiana. Bam would really pop. He would have a 51-point projection on both DK and on Fanduel, a pretty strong value on both sites. Lowry would be a little bit of value on 31-30 DK points. Duncan Robinson, not really. Caleb Martin only going to give 28 minutes to. They're trying to keep his minutes down. Spo wants to keep his minutes in check if they can. And I'm going to talk about Indiana, and I want you in the chat to think. We have a nickname now down here for South Florida for Jaime Jaquez. What do you think his nickname is? It's out there. I was reading an article about it earlier today. But talk about the Pacers. Well, the chat tell us the worst thing that's ever happened to him, as well as what might be Jaime Jaquez's nickname.
So on the Indiana side of things, it's just Tyrese Halliburton for me because this isn't a very good matchup. Obviously, Indiana just plays their own game regardless, and they do what they want to do, and they put up a ton of points against anybody, it seems like. So it's probably just Halliburton for me. But, if we happen to get like Isaiah Jackson out on top of Jalen Smith, I think Obi Toppin becomes more interesting, and I actually think he would probably come off the bench. I would bet you he wouldn't start if we get Isaiah Jackson out. And what they would do is start Aaron Nesmith at the 4, and Obi Toppin would become the backup 5, still probably end up with mid to high 20s minutes and become a more interesting player off the bench with more usage and probably more minutes, actually. And so I like that idea quite a bit if we happen to get Isaiah Jackson out. But Indiana, to me, isn't near as interesting as Miami. I don't know. What's his nickname? I couldn't think of anything. My guess was the Red Beetle.
Is that a playoff of like Kevin Herter or something like that? So by the way,
no, the Heats are red, and there's and the Blue Beetle, who is a superhero, is Jaime Reyes.
He looks a little bit like Keanu Reeves, right? Looks, if you've seen him up close, a little like you squint your eyes a little bit. They're calling him Juan Wick, is what they're calling him, and he loves it. He's embracing it. So that's they're calling Jaime.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah, not mine, but and I believe he's Mexican too. So like he says he's totally embracing it. He says family found it's hilarious. So there you go. So the Pacers, obviously, they play at a ferocious speed, fastest pace in all of basketball, and our defense is pretty weak too. So that's why Miami would be pretty appealing. They could dust off this Walker guy if they lose both of the bigs there. I'm not, you're not playing him, but I'm just kind of thinking like where minutes may go, right? But I think it's Toppin would be at least in the pool, I guess. You don't really want to run him out there versus Miami, but he would have an increased chance of at least as far as his ceiling, at least, if nothing else. Let's see. My worst mistake was not playing. This is King. Is that effing dash?
Freaking.
Oh, free. Okay. Okay. That's what it. My worst mistake was not playing Rizzo in a baseball lineup, and I won 6K instead of 36K because he hit a 3-run shot. I had Donaldson at 10. Instead, don't play Donaldson. Just never play Donaldson. I love him like even when we win, and then not to pick. Even when you win like 5K, it's like, oh man, I should have done this, and I would have won 12K. Like, man, we can't just be happy. I'm not thinking. Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm sure if I've ever won 5K. Andrew says any Caleb Martin. Yeah, I'm not terribly enthused. McBuckets is doubtful now. Sohan is in. I'm sorry, Sohan. Yeah, Sohan's in, right? Yeah, Doug.
I love Caleb Martin if Jimmy Butler's out.
Okay. Like you could see him being on your single entry team?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Joe wants to know if we should fade the 1 o'clock game. It's a good game.
The 7 o'clock game.
7 o'clock game. I was gonna keep this bit up the entire time.
You can for sure. If you're playing 150 lineup, I would keep a lot of the Cavs guys in my pool, maybe Malcolm Brogdon, but if you're playing one lineup, yeah, for sure you can fade that game.
All right. Detroit Lions at the New York Jets. 218.5 is the total. We're talking about a 14-point favorite are the Jets. Detroit playing in the back half of the back-to-back.
That was good. I see what you did there. That was good.
Yeah, well, I'm leaning in too hard now. That was super obvious. This is okay. I'm just going to lean in. This is be the bit for the show. Bogdanovich is still out, and I saw in the chat Michael was saying that's what's going to turn the franchise around. 34-year-old Bojan Bogdanovich. When he's healthy, they're going to start winning for sure. And Joe Harris is hurt too, so you really can't judge this club until they get Joe Harris and Monty Morris back, which I don't think Morris is even coming back. The Knicks are fully healthy, but the matchup's great. They should probably pummel Detroit. They show no mercy. Tibbs, he wants to keep his guys out as long as possible and smash as long as possible. They rarely pull their guys until maybe like the 2 or 3 minute mark if it's a complete shellacking. But, the matchup's great. The matchup's prime. The Brunson burner there looks fabulous. Randall looks good. Yeah, it's just I don't know how much I can prioritize these guys. What say you as far as New York versus Detroit?
Chat's cracking me up now, right now. Like everything. Tim's trying to relieve you. Tim's trying to get you out of the show and stop himself in here. Tag team you out, put you in. Bomb Squad said if this show were DFS, Dean would have a snowflake for this performance.
It's a good call. That's fair. It's fair criticism.
And then B-Shot says, Dean, it's 5:41 Eastern time, and Chop hasn't added his plays to Lineup HQ yet. Would you say that that's gutless?
Gutless? No. You know what? I bet you don't know what Chop's doing.
I don't know. I was going to say it's not gutless because he's been having some power outage issues today, and that's why I might be on the pre-log show later, is because he's not sure if he's going to be able to do it.
It's a likely story. All right. That's a good cover, though. I didn't think you'd actually have an answer for it, but that sounds legit. I got to know if Chop likes Julius Randle tonight or not. Do you?
I don't mind Julius Randle tonight. Then yeah, Kirkwood in chat confirming the alibi that Chop currently has no electricity.
Alibi. He didn't murder anybody. He just didn't put.
It's still called an alibi, I think. Yeah, I don't mind Julius Randle today. Jalen Brunson. This is a good matchup for the Knicks. So Randle, Brunson, Barrett, and Robinson, and even Emmanuel Quickly. All of these guys I'm okay with in this spot. Mitchell Robinson actually probably would be my favorite here. He's cheap. He's getting 30 plus minutes. If he can get you 10 and 10 and you're happy, but he could also put up 5-6 blocks in a game. And when he does that, you can get a real ceiling performance. And so Mitchell Robinson is probably my favorite, Nick. But yeah, Julius Randle, don't mind him one bit. Brunson's fine. Barrett's fine. Quickly's fine. Robinson would be the one who's most likely to hit my single entry lineup, though, if any of them do.
Both these teams, really good rebounding teams. New York, the best rebounding team in basketball, probably. Detroit is the third most blocked team in basketball, if you want to play that route with
Jimmy Butler is on track to play.
That's such a Miami thing. No other team does the on-track stuff. Nobody does it like Miami with the on-track to play. Okay. That's good. Good to know, I guess. Chris Paul out for the next couple of games. We'll talk about the Warriors soon enough. Let's move on. Let's power through. After Detroit and hold on. Yeah, Detroit, New York, Atlanta, the Spurs. That's up next. That's an 8:00 game. We're done with the 7:00 games. Done with the 7:30 games. Atlanta and San Antonio. The total is 248. That is a wow number. It's not what we saw with Atlanta, Indiana, which was 252.5. That was broken. It was 9 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they reached that number. It was wild. It was a fun basketball game. Spurs at home, 7-point dogs, front half of a back-to-back for them. The tricky thing here is Wemby, right? Wemby is officially questionable. Do we know if he's going to play tonight? I don't know. Sohan is officially in. McDermott is out. Or I think he's doubtful, but come on. He's 1,000 years old, and they made him doubtful. He's not playing. Jalen Johnson is also not playing for Atlanta. Otherwise, Atlanta is fully healthy.
How old do you think Doug McDermott is?
Not 1,000. I will say give or take 1,000. He's I would say he's 34.
He's 31.
Wow, man, bad job, man. I'm usually pretty good at that. Yeah, is that where you were at too? You're the cheat code, obviously. You couldn't guess, but
yeah, no, I that's why I looked it up. I was like, he's not that old, is he?
Yeah, I guess I was wrong on that one too. Keeping the theme of the show. So Trae Young looks spectacular. And I hate saying, oh, this guy's great and that guy's great and that guy's great. Well, if everybody's great, like how do I decide amongst all these great options? How do I make it work? But right, Trae Young is spectacular here.
Here's the question: is DeJounte Murray the very best tournament play on the slate?
What is the ownership currently for Murray? Is it less than 10%?
6%.
It's a good play. I like it. Also, here's my follow-up question for you. Where did DeJounte Murray play before he played for the Atlanta Hawks?
The San Antonio Spurs.
Who does he play this evening?
The San Antonio Spurs.
Was that part of your thesis as to why, or just it just sort of?
We got some revenge. Yeah. We got some revenge for DeJounte Murray. It's not like that's one small thing. Like I'm going to be honest, I am factoring it in just because I do think DeJounte is vengeful. I do think going back to San Antonio, he's gonna. I don't think he's vengeful.
He misses the Tex-Mex.
I think he's gonna want to put on a show. And so while that would not really, and then like Steve Jones in chat says DeJounte legit hates Pop. I have heard some things that there is some issues there. And so I think there could be I think he could be vengeful. To quote our guy Bobby, I know Bobby has kind of like his vengeful rankings that he likes to judge guys based on, and I think that DeJounte is that. And like you combine that with the fact that like Trey is going to be 3 to 4 times higher owned than he is today. It's a phenomenal matchup. This game could put up 280 points. So single digit ownership, revenge, decent projection, teammate who he shares the backcourt with, projecting incredibly like for much higher ownership. I love me some DeJounte Murray today.
San Antonio top 5 in pace, bottom 5 in defensive rating. It's this tricky thing is Wemby's got to make their defense at least better. Like he's out there, it's going to be like Jetty Osman or something getting some run. Like he's got to be a better defender than Jetty Osman. But like then the blowout gets increased, right? So do you want Wemby out there is what I'm asking basically. Because it should make it easier for Atlanta, but also makes the blowout more likely. You understand that question?
Yeah, I'd probably rather Wemby in there, but I'm good either way. Like the reason I'd rather him out is because like I know if he's out, I'm full stacking this game. My single entry lineup is going to have DeJounte Murray. Heck, I might play DeJounte and Trae Young together, and just run it back with Devin Vassell, Zach Collins, Keldon Johnson, all of these guys. Because if Victor Wembanyama is out, I think Keldon, Vassell, and Zach become 3 of the very best plays on the slate. Sohan is in play. Chetty Osman would probably be in play, especially now that Doug McDermott's out as well. I'm good either way because I think this game is more likely to stay close if he's in, but if he's out, it's easier to stack.
We have an if-then in the 2 positive values. There's 2 positive values currently. This is if Wemby sits. Only if Wemby sits. Zach Collins, I think, becomes one of the best players on the slate. He would have a projection about 38, 37 DK FanDuel points. Big body Keldon Johnson, about 38 DK, 36 FanDuel. Those are the only 2 positive ones on DK. Champagne would be a positive play on FanDuel, and Sohan would slightly be a positive play. You mentioned Vassell. My issue with him is I don't know how much they're going to push him minutes wise. They've been kind of stringing him along. I'm checking his most recent minutes. Wait, okay. Well, yeah, hold on a second. He's not played. Let's see. Why can't I find Devin Vassell's game log? Do you happen to have this up in front of you? This is me goofing
26, 27, 26 minutes in his last 3.
Yeah, like I don't know how many, and we're projecting 27. So like I don't know. You never really know if and when that bump is coming.
Pop's vengeful too, though. He wants to beat DeJounte Murray. Kawhi, maybe. He told everybody to stop booing Kawhi. Why? Because he loves Kawhi. He won him a championship. He loves Kawhi. Yeah. Who wouldn't love Kawhi? I love Kawhi. He won me a championship too. But
you got the ring and everything.
I think he's vengeful. I do. I think he's vengeful about DeJounte Murray, and like Pop might suit up too. He might go out there and play a good 12 minutes tonight.
I'm a big Pop guy. I think most people like Pop, but that was kind of the microphone thing was
because it was Kawhi. I'm all for it. I don't care if that's anybody else. I'm like, hey, whatever. Let the people do what they want. They paid their tickets.
Let them do what they want their way within reason.
Nah, man, that's Kawhi. You don't do that to. That'd be like doing that to Tony Parker.
Producer Steve, question in the poll. Put a poll in the chat. I don't know how you want to word it.
That was the other thing too. He didn't want Kawhi to immediately drop 30 more points on them.
Are the people on board with what Greg Popovich did? In the middle of Kawhi taking his free throw shot, or between free throw shots, he grabbed the house mic and said, listen, let's stop booing this dude. That's not San Antonio or whatever it was. I don't know if I'm not on board with it. They weren't like throwing stuff and saying it. They were just booing, as far as I know. But is the chat on board with it? Basically, did they approve of Pop's move there or not? Anything else you want to say as far as saying? And by the way, if we happen to get Wembanyama, I think he's an incredible like run back. If you want to pair him with Trey, or if you want to pair him with Murray, or have like 2 or 3 pieces in this game, I think Wemby is spectacular. I don't know if we addressed that. Did you address that?
If Wemby plays, I think he is absolutely a fantastic play. I'm with you. I do worry because he only played 24 minutes last game. I'm not sure. I don't like without looking at that. I'm not sure if that was blowout or if that was like foul trouble or anything. But if that was because of this injury, then I would have a little bit of a issue. That is something I think I'm going to have to look into here because when you pull up the game log here on Lineup HQ, that doesn't pop up. But I'll have to look at Court IQ or Court IQ and take a peek at if that was a blowout, if that was foul trouble when he got pulled there, because the injury thing does worry me a little bit. But in general, like it's fantastic spot for Wemby if he plays.
Last game Wemby played, he lost basically the last like 2 minutes of the fourth quarter, but they played Basal, they pulled the plug pretty early, it looks like. Collins was like the last starter out there. Keldon and Collins pulled around the 6-minute mark, but that's kind of when Wemby gets pulled, right? Because he gets pulled like in the middle of the third and comes back at the end of the third and sticks around for part of the fourth. So I don't think that was injury related. I'm pretty sure. Just looking at the box score, like he would have come back if the game was close. Okay. Let's move on. Let's power through. Again, crunch time coming on about 20, 25 minutes or so. You get Kyle Murray, you get Taylor, you get Kevin Roth. They're taking you home, answering all your questions in chat, the Discord channels. Hang out in the Discord, by the way. If you ever just like during the day, you're not napping, you want to talk a little bit of basketball, RotoGrinders.com/Discord. Most of the channels happen to be free, and it's, there's channels that are for just NFL, just basketball, and by the sport you want to talk about. There are some that are premium, like Blender's got his own room. If you want to talk props, hang out with Chief in the prop shop. Good place to like-minded people bounce ideas back and forth. Okay, we got 4 games left. Next up is the Jazz. The Jazz at Minnesota. 221 is the total. The Minnesota T-Wolves, they are 11-point favorites here. Big deal here is that Edwards. Edwards is currently doubtful, not officially out, but likely not playing. He's got a hip. Dave McDaniels is still out. As far as the Jazz are in the back half of back-to-back. They're traveling as well. They're very bad. Minnesota plays good defense, but Kelly O's got a shoulder, so he's questionable. Markkanen's out. Clarkson's got a thigh, so he's questionable. So they could be severely limited here. I don't have a read. I don't have a good read on this Clarkson situation. But he played last night, and he was actually, I feel like he's bounced back and forth on the injury report with his injury. Maybe he's just kind of playing through it. Maybe the Jazz just playing games because their season's already over. I don't know. Chris Dunn's out too, for what it's worth. Doesn't matter so much. Walker Kessler revenge game, right? Wasn't he drafted by Minnesota and like traded to Utah? The rights, wasn't he involved in that in the Gobert situation? I believe he was. And his minutes are fickle, but he should start starting one of these days. Like, why is Omer Yurtseven starting in front of him? I have no idea. We'll see if he starts. But Jazz, T-Wolves, it's a tricky one because there's a lot of if-then stuff. And if you want to parse through it, by all means, go for it.
Yeah, like this is, I think, one of the most important spots on the slate because Towns right now is the guy. Like Towns is probably the best play on the slate. And then this is our best spot for value. Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander Walker, Troy Brown, even some Naz Reid. All these guys are in a great spot. If you're playing 150 lineups, throw in Shake Milton. Keep Shake Milton in your pool too, because he's somebody that I think could, especially if this turns into a blowout, pick up some extra minutes and then absolutely smash that salary. So I like that a lot. And then on the Utah side of things, if everybody plays, I don't really have much interest just because Minnesota is so strong defensively. But if Jordan Clarkson's out, if Kelly Olynyk's out, then I think these guys become playable in some kind of mini game stacks. They're already without Chris Dunn too, so I think Colin Sexton would have very, very secure minutes. And so I think Colin Sexton would be one of my favorite values if we get Clarkson out. But the rest of these guys have kind of been priced up since they've been missing so many. You muted again, Dean.
Oh my gosh, we did it again. We got the turkey. That's 3 for sure. Sexton is ahead of THD.
Yes, I would put it Sexton well ahead of THT.
Yeah, it's if Kessler was cheaper, I'd find him interesting. I think he's going to get 27 to 28, maybe 30 minutes or so against the bigs in the Minnesota side. We could see the three-man rotation, again, not three-man rotation, but we could see all the bigs there for Minnesota at the same time, which is always fun when you include Cat and Gobert and the Wizard of Nas. Nas is one of the better cheapies on the slate as things stand right now, just sort of like to make stuff work. I think he's got 20 really solidified minutes with a chance to play 23, 24, which doesn't sound amazing, but he's still pretty cheap, 4.5K. He's got power forward eligibility, which is nice. He's not center and center only. And he is fantasy point minute guy, 22% usage. And the matchup versus Utah is really good as well. So if nothing cracks our way as far as cheap stuff, I think I'm going to be playing some Nas. I don't know if I know you mentioned the Minnesota stuff, but is that kind of where you're at as well?
Yeah, I'd be fine with Nas, but I probably won't get there in my single entry because I'll be playing Towns. I think Towns is undoubtedly the best player on the slate today. Gets a 10% usage increase without Anthony Edwards on the court. It's ridiculous. And so Minnesota, now that Miami is going to be with Jimmy Butler, presumably, Atlanta and this Minnesota team is kind of tied for my top spot with the Atlanta San Antonio game.
The Nas stuff is really rough. I'm not excited about it. He got benched last game a fair bit for Troy Brown jumped in front of him. It looked like I think what kept him around or what got him some minutes was the fact that we saw Edwards not play the fourth quarter, but I guess Edwards not playing is keeping Na and Brown to get some minutes. Neither are really a fun roster.
No, you can't say Na and then use it as a possessive because then that's Nas. I thought you were talking about Nas Reed. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, yes, I do like.
Oh, no, I like Nas Reed. I don't love Alexander-Walker.
I'd rather play Alexander. Yeah, see, not N-A-W. Yes, Nas, only if I'm not playing Towns.
Oh, I'm considering salary-wise, I'm probably more likely to play Nas than Na, but, I'm willing to play him.
Call him Alexander-Walker.
It's a lot of syllables, man. Who's got time for that? On the other end, SGA. By the way, this is actually true. I was going to make up a fun fact, but they're not brothers, but SGA and Na are cousins. Did you know that?
I did know that. They're both Canadian. They're on the national team together.
Actually,
Nickeil doesn't always make it.
Shout out to Andrew Wiggins. Who else is on the Canadian national team? I'm trying to think.
And Wiggins barely plays. Wiggins is only on the team a third of the time, and so it's the SGA Jamal Murray show in the backcourt.
Murray.
And then, but the whole team is NBA players at this point.
Yeah, I knew. Then there was one other guy. By the way, Brandon Miller ruled out, so that's kind of a big deal because
PJ Washington season,
and they're gonna start Washington because they kind of have to, right? Rozier, Washington, Hayward, Bridges, Williams. It's weird because they're going to be distinctly bigger than this Brooklyn team.
Yeah, one of the reasons I love me some Claxton tonight. I think he's going to play really big minutes.
Who else could start? I guess they could start Maladon or Ish. No, they're not going to do that, right?
Chief on the morning grind was fairly confident that it was going to be PJ Washington, and he's the Hornets fan, so I trust him.
Yeah, and Washington had a severe hit in his minutes when Bridges came back, so his price has come down. But now, we got to circle back on that. But assuming Washington starts, I think he's probably the best dollar-for-dollar play. And everybody else gets bumped up, and it's a 10-point line or so. But if this game stays really tight, that's one you can kind of game stack a little bit, I think. And get a stud around it because there's not a lot of expensive pieces in this game. Just a thought. Okay. Are we done with Minnesota and Utah? Moving on?
Yep.
We're talking about the Lakers. Lakers in the back half of a back-to-back. 233 is the total. They're 6-point dogs in OKC. As always, LeBron is questionable. I assume he's playing until otherwise noted, but, he is officially questionable. Cam Reddish, who came back yesterday, is questionable. Max Christie is questionable. All these wings are just nonsense anyway. Rui is still out. Vincent is still out. OKC is fully 100% healthy. There are some studs in this game. Do we have the money for it? I don't know. I like them in the old Hoover in the vacuum for sure, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get SGA or if I'm going to be able to get LeBron or Davis, but they're all fine. If I have the money and everything else looks okay, last man in, sure, we're good with that. Your thoughts as far as Lakers and the Thunder?
Lakers, I don't have much interest in. Anthony Davis would be the main guy, but I'd be very interested to see who, do they pop Austin Reeves back into the starting lineup? If Christie and Cam Reddish are out, who's going to play on the wing today for them? Are Austin Reeves and D'Angelo Russell just going to each play 40 minutes again? And so if that's maybe I would bump up the starters, but would Jalen Hood Schifino become in play? Is one of these 3K guys going to come in and play 28 minutes today?
I think Reeves would just play. Reeves will come off the bench and play 30 minutes, I think.
Reeves is already projected to come off the bench and play 28 minutes, though. So he'd have to play a lot more than 30 if Max Christie and Cam Reddish, who are projecting for 48 minutes right now, are going to go out. We'd have 48 minutes to divvy up to the rest of this team. Good
point. The other way of saying this is that Davis, LeBron, and Russell are not going to allow anybody else to shoot. It's whoever it is, they're going to stand in the corner. So they're not going to do anything. Christie, Reddish, if it's those guys, fine. If it's these players I've never heard of, I don't really think there's going to be one guy that's going to be 3K that doesn't exist, that we haven't really thought about. Unless you have somebody nobody's getting shots over LeBron, Davis, and Russell.
Yeah, right? I think honestly, maybe we're just going back to, I think maybe we're just you'd probably want to go back to D'Angelo Russell, who just absolutely lit it up the other night. Was that last night?
Yes, he 35 and 10 or something like that. He went nuts, 25% in the first half.
Yeah,
I'm fine with that.
Crazy stuff.
I think the good stuff becomes a little bit better. Is all. Whatever, however few shots Max Christie and Cam Reddish would take, their replacements would take even less shots. And Prince is not cheap. He's 5K. Hey, I can't play Prince at 5K. I got principles. I can't do that. It's not happening. And then the Thunder, they're fully healthy. SGA is awesome. He's getting some ownership, but not a lot, 12%. 10% for Jalen Williams. Chet Holmgren, love Chet Holmgren, but he's just expensive now. By the way, he's jumped Wembanyama in the rookie voting. I don't know if you saw that. He's the current favorite for rookie of the year, which is kind of wild. Well deserved. Both of them deserve it, but it's not a fluke thing. He's also on the better team, which would help as well if you need a tiebreaker. What do you think of the Thunder tonight?
SGA, I think, is one of the best tournament spend-ups on the slate. Chet, I don't think is overpriced. I think he still has a ceiling at that price, so I don't mind getting to him as well. But just those two. Nobody else at their prices I don't think I'd want to get to on this team.
Okay, so let's just move on. Moving on?
Yeah. I want to make sure that people like SGA, people know we like SGA. I think SGA is great. So just because we're not spending a lot of time on this game, don't take that as we're just Xing out the whole game. I think SGA is great, just not really much else. I
agree. I think he's fabulous. I just don't know if I'm not going to build and say I must get SGA and build the lineup out that way. But if I build in and I have the money for SGA, yeah, let's do it. If that makes sense. It's just thrilled to get him, but I'm not starting and saying, okay, SGA and now what? Because then I'm going to be struggling, I think. And maybe salary opens up more than I think with more news coming. But as things stand right now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get him. Love to, though. Milwaukee and Chicago, 229. That is the total there. The Bulls, whatever is left of them, they are home 8-point dogs to the Bucks. This one, what are we going to do here? Because it's just kind of some guesswork. We have Levine questionable with his foot. Even when he plays, he leaves mid-game. They got embarrassed the other night versus Boston. Boston put a 30-point differential up on him, or 25. And DeRozan was whining about it. What happened the first time? How about this? Don't let him score. You ever think of that there, Double D's? Alex Caruso is questionable too. Middleton is fine. Crowder is out. The only one out for Milwaukee is Jay Crowder. And like the theme of the show for the Stars, like I love Giannis. He's great. Lillard's spectacular too. This is a good funnel for hitting some threes. So this is a spot where Lillard can hit like 6 or 7 threes, maybe 8 or 9. Wouldn't shock me. He kind of has to. Put 35, 40 points in the bucket with all the stars out there. Am I going to get to him as my one big star? I don't know. Am I okay with it? Sure. But yeah, Milwaukee, Chicago. This Bulls team is just like, even if like value pops up, is it going to be value? Because they seem to blow it every single time.
Yeah, I really hope DeRozan and Levine and Caruso, they just all play so I can X out this entire game. I already know I'm not going to play anybody from Milwaukee, but the Chicago side is really going to depend on if these guys play. If they're in, X. If they're out, I'm still probably not going to play Vucevic because I think they're going to get blown out. Kobe White, he's probably too expensive. Maybe some Io, maybe some Javon Carter. And yeah, I'm going to play Andre Drummond again. That was devastating to see that it was a 30-point game in that last game. And I was like, oh, wow. I loaded up on Drummond in my 150 build. This probably went super well today.
They did a hack of Drummond's.
They did the hack of Drummond, and so they had to pull him in a 25-point game. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even consider that. And so I was so rattled when I saw that. But look, I'm going to go back to the well. Anytime Chicago is going to get blown out, especially when they're undermanned, I'll take a shot in a GPP. And so because all he needs is 20 minutes to break a slate at that price tag. But if all these guys are in, just Xing out this whole game.
He doesn't even need 20. Like 20 is fabulous, but he can do it in 15 sometimes.
That's the thing. Like he can be a value in 13, 14, 15, but he can just like break a slate in 20 minutes.
So Bryce McGowan's is the guy that's going to draw the start for Charlotte. McGowan's is drawing the start. So yeah, I don't know if he closes. I think Washington's going to get more minutes as well too. The projection team, I'm sure, is on top of it. How bad is McGowan's as a fantasy player? Is he like the floor?
That bad.
Let's see. Pulling it up here.
Like he's like probably like a close to like a 0.7 or 0.8 point per minute guy.
0.6. 11.74 usage. But he's 3.1K.
I'm probably not going to get there. In 150, yeah, but I'm probably not going to get there. Especially if people just are like, we don't have much value, I'm going to go there now, then definitely not.
So he's probably going to project, and this isn't my job, but like he's probably going to project for around 25 minutes or so. And that's going to project for about 17 fantasy points at 3K, right? Like as a median projection. 17 point median projections hit lineups sometimes. And like this is the kind of night where we're sort of desperate for, at least at this point. We'll see if things change. I'm not advocating to play him. I'm just sort of doing the math on it. That's all. Does that sound right to you though?
Yeah, that does sound right to me. I'm not going to do it just because like I don't think we really need it. Like, I want to play all these mid-range guys. Like, I want to play Kat. I want to maybe play Adebayo. I want to play DeJounte Murray or Trae Young.
Well,
like, there's not really anybody I want. Because they're all below 10K.
No, well, okay, but you can't play. I like those guys. How are you playing those 4 guys? Not the same lineup.
No, not the same lineup. I'm saying, like, the spend-ups I want to get to outside of SGA are all below 10K. So, like, it's not hard to build lineups today without the crazy low value.
I think that's kind of where I'm shopping too. I don't think I'm going to be able to spend up on the big boys like Giannis or even LeBron or Davis, those kind of guys, and just hopefully, there's no Embiid, there's no Joker, so hopefully nobody puts up like an 80 spot on us. We have the Clippers and the Warriors. You love this. It's 2 hours after every other game. We can just be chilling, but no, you want to stare at your laptop for the next 2 hours.
I'm already going to be watching football.
You're watching I might watch the football. The Cowboys are interesting. I'll probably make some showdown lineups. You know how I'm going to do it? I'm going to use SimLabs. Check out SimLabs. It's free. It's in beta. You can do it for both Fanduel and DraftKings. You can get some well-crafted. I read it earlier. You guys know what it is at this point. Yeah. We'll drop it in chat. But it's still in beta. It's still free. It'll make a bunch of showdown lineups for you, however you want them, for large field, small field, and just to have something to keep an eye on it. Every once in a while, something gets interesting. So, one play makes the difference there in showdown. Hopefully, it goes your way this evening. Clippers, Golden State, 227 is the total. 114 is the team total for the Warriors. I don't know why I read their team total, but I did, and I committed to it. The Warriors are 3-point favorites, 2-point favorites, despite missing several players. Who's out tonight for Golden State? There's no Gary Payton II. Chris Paul's out, and Andrew Wiggins is out. So 3 key rotation players are gone. As far as the Clippers back half of a back-to-back, they do have Norman Powell questionable. He left last night's game with an injury. He's got a knee. We'll see. Plumlee is still out as well. The hammer that is the Clippers and the Warriors. Battle of California. What are your leans here? What do we like? Anything we're emphasizing, or just sort of stuff like you're okay to land on?
Stuff that I'm okay to land on, but in my single entry, I'll probably try and get one player from this game, just so I like seeing myself climb up that leaderboard as things get late. Last night, it was Ivica Zubac for me, and I was just at that min cash line, and then Zubac smashed, so he brought me up there to like 40th place or something like that. So I'm a big fan of, I think, Dario Saric and or Moses Moody. Those are going to be the 2 guys I'd want to get to the most for this team. Maybe a little bit like if I'm running a lot of lineups, I think you take shots on Podziemski and or Kuminga. I think both of them become pretty interesting with no Chris Paul, no Andrew Wiggins. Podziemski is only projected for like 16 minutes, but I think he could end up getting like 24. I think Kuminga could end up getting like 24. The Warriors are always very volatile with their minutes, so I don't think, while our projections team is amazing, I just kind of feel like the Warriors rotations are sometimes unprojectable. And because they just decide to change things up on a whim. So while I like Saric and Moody, I'm considering them for my single entry. I don't think it's crazy in MME to take shots on Podziemski or Kuminga either. And then on the Clippers side of things, I don't really think I want to get to any of them. In MME, I would set a rule that I'd want max 1, but I'm totally fine with playing George, Kawhi, or Harden. Any of them I think are totally viable. Zubac, probably not for me unless we get so Kevin Looney is currently projected to start in place of Andrew Wiggins. And so I would maybe play Zubac just because Looney's out there, but I kind of view Zubac as like a Jonas Valanciunas type guy where I don't really care about the matchup. I just need to make sure he's going to play minutes, and I could see this game going small. So I do worry about him. And it'd probably just be, if I was running lots of lineups, all 3 of those, the big 3 would be in the pool, but maximum 1. And I don't think I'd really care if Norm Powell's out. Like, maybe it makes Terrence Mann a little more interesting, but like all these other guys outside of George, Kawhi, Harden, and Westbrook are all such low point per minute guys, and Zubac too. But there isn't really somebody that to me would see a big uptick if Norman Powell was out. So it'd still really just be those guys.
Edwards officially ruled out as suspected there for Minnesota. My favorite play in this game, you mentioned you hit on him, assuming he starts. We're giving him 28 minutes. Moses Moody. If you want to have fun with small samples on the court IQ, I kicked off Wiggins, I kicked off Paul, and it's a small sample. In 49 minutes, Moses Moody is averaging 1.36 fantasy points per minute. I didn't kick off Peyton as well because I figured he'd probably kill my sample size, and he's not a guy that's going to take up a bunch of usage anyway. So
I also bet you if you put Steph Curry on the court, like you put on for Curry, that sample size would dwindle.
Yeah, well, that's probably true as well. They don't cross. Let's see. It's going to go from 49 minutes to 9 minutes. Yeah, he doesn't play.
So blowout run, he goes off.
1.12 fantasy points in 9 minutes. Yeah, that's not really.
For what it's worth, I still like him. I'm not trying to say he's a bad play. It's just I think that like Zach LaVine ruled out. Caruso will play. But for what it's worth, like I just think that's more of that was garbage time when he was getting those minutes without those guys.
Is Kobe White gonna elevate? I'm not playing Caruso.
A game time decision.
They're not Caruso. They're not going to push him. He's always going to the locker room. He's always got an issue with his foot. He's also a bad fantasy player. But Moody had like a terrible usage too in that 9 minutes. But I don't want to flip out over 9 minutes. But he's also just sort of cheap, right? And I'm looking for some cheap stuff. 9% usage and like the 9 minutes he's played alongside Steph without Wiggins, without Paul. We're not certain he's starting. I don't think. I haven't seen an announcement, but that does seem to be the most likely scenario there for Golden State, with like Saric and Kuminga and Pods coming off the bench. But they're looking pretty thin tonight. Golden State, not a lot of dust off Corey Joseph or something like that. Like I can't imagine want to give him much run. Are we projecting minutes for Corey Joseph? We probably are. Is it an 8-man rotation or a 9-man rotation? What are we going with? We are giving Corey Joseph a couple minutes here, 14, and TJD is getting 10 as well. So yeah, it's not that you're rostering those players, but I'm just sort of thinking out loud. It's like where their rotations would be pretty tight is the point. This has got to be like a TNT game, right? Is this a TNT doubleheader tonight on a Thursday?
Yeah, I think so.
I would assume so. Yeah, it would make sense. We should have crunch time coming in shortly. You got Kyle Murray, you got Taylor, you got Kevin Roth. Yeah. Anything you want to say before they come in? They're jumping in just a second. Something you want to emphasize? We went around the horn as far as every single game. We talked about our favorite Ben Stiller movies, which we're going to give a second. Maybe if Kyle's got a second to chime in, or Kevin or Taylor, if they want to stand for their favorite Ben Stiller movie, by all means, I'll give you a second to think about it. But a player that's going to break the slate, feel it in your feel it in your nuts. It's not feeling it in your nuts, but that's basically what the question is, right? What is it? Feel it in your what's the term that you use?
Plums.
Plums. Yeah. You know, we know what they're really asking.
Tough show for Dean.
What are you feeling in the plums tonight, TJ?
It's DeJounte Murray. I'm feeling DeJounte Murray in my plums, and he's going to break the slate in a revenge spot against San Antonio in San Antonio. And I don't know. I feel like this isn't a hot take because it was my favorite too. It's a great movie, but like just looking at Kyle right now, I can just almost guarantee he's a dodgeball fan. Like that's his favorite.
But they're making a remake, not a remake. They're making a new one, a sequel, like 20 years later. It's going to happen again. New dodgeball.
I'm the one who told you that.
No, the internet told me that, and you sent me the link like 10 minutes afterwards. But thank you. I like that you knew I would be interested in that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kyle, can you confirm or deny? Are you a fan of dodgeball?
I am a big fan of dodgeball, but I think my favorite would be Night at the Museum. That gives me the nostalgia, so I'll go with that.
What are the 5 Ds of dodgeball? Do you know those?
Not off the top of my head.
Duck,
I'm guessing
dodge,
one's
dip,
dodge.
dive,
and dodge.
And dodge. Yeah.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
Yeah.
There you go. And Kevin, it's the 58th birthday for Ben Stiller. It's why it just sort of came up. A favorite Ben Stiller movie? You got one for the people?
He's had a lot of funny cameos, right? Like I think wasn't he an Anchorman as the
cameos don't count. It's not a Ben Stiller movie.
I don't know. They're all good. He's funny. He's like legitimately funny. So he's got plenty.
Taylor, you got anything? Taylor's on mute. Oh, how unprofessional to be on mute.
I know.
Dean
Amateur hour. I think
contagious.
it's Tropic Thunder. I think that's the chalk, but I think that is also the correct answer.
It's so funny.
We got anything else, TJ? I love the Murray call, by the way. I'm going to be playing it as well. I'm telling the Murray. I don't know how eventual he is. Hopefully he summons his inner John Wick. But with that, crunch time is starting. It's myself and TJ bidding you guys adieu. Hit that like button. Stick around till lock. 40 minutes. You got Taylor. You got Kyle. You have Roth. Roth, take it away.
Let's do it. Good stuff as always, Dino and TJ. Welcome to it, ladies and gents. It is crunch time. The show is sponsored by Fanduel. As you are likely well aware by now, it's free because of Fanduel. All we ask for is a little thumbs up. And it's the show where we get to the sharpest minds in the biz. We got Kyle in the house. What up, Kyle?
Yeah, looking forward to talking about a Thursday's NBA slate that isn't 2 or 3 games. So I'm excited to break it down here.
Yeah, we got a pretty good size slate here, but not overwhelming, not
Agreed.
Obnoxious, just the right size. We got Taylor in the house as well. Taylor, how are you?
Doing well. Yeah, it's kind of shocking to see 9 games on a Thursday, but more fun that way.
Yeah, in full agreement. I got nothing better to do tonight than play some DFS. So let's do it. Let's get locked and loaded and win some money. Who wants to be kind of my chalk donkey, my cash guy today?
I can be the cash guy. I don't mind
Very
that.
good. Okay. Kyle, you feel good about bringing some tournament thoughts to us?
Yep, let's do it.
Okay. Well, then, Taylor, I will start with you. You want to give me a brief overview here on the slate, maybe some important news we're waiting on, a situation or a spot that we really need to key in on, anything like that?
So we are waiting on a few big ones. Wemby, I think we saw as a game time decision. DeMar DeRozan, a game time decision. We just got Levine out. LeBron, technically questionable, but not really. Jimmy Butler is likely to play. I think those were the main ones. Then there's this big San Antonio Atlanta game, has the highest total on the slate. Two teams that play fast, two teams that don't play defense. So that should be a popular target. If Wemby's out, obviously that opens up a ton of usage for pretty much everybody else. So that's kind of the main thing we're waiting on at the moment.
Okay, very nice. Well, then let's dive into it with a little FanDuel cash build. You can walk me through just your basic thoughts here as you're going through building the squad.
Yeah, so another big news item we got is Anthony Edwards is out. He was doubtful. We just got that he's officially out. So Minnesota is kind of a popular value team tonight. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is a guy Noto has tagged as a core play. He pops as our best point per dollar value on the slate at 4,400. You could play him at shooting guard or small forward. He's already been starting without Jaden McDaniels. We have him at 31 minutes tonight with Edwards also out. I think he's kind of a staple of your cash lineups for sure. Mike Conley, definitely more of a cash play in general than a tournament guy. Pretty limited ceiling most of the time, but again, Minnesota's short on usage or short on guards. He should see a little more usage by default. He's a decent value, I think, in the mid-range, 5,300. So way better value on FanDuel than he is on DK. Mm-hmm. There are more Timberwolves you can play in cash. Kyle Anderson, I think he's going to be coming off the bench. We have Troy Brown projected to start, but Anderson, 5,600, should still see about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less off the bench. Decent point per minute guy historically. It's also worth noting that Minnesota is playing Utah, which is a team that is 28th in defense. We've been picking on them all season long. So that's part of why these guys are popping. The spend up of the day is kind of Karl Anthony Towns, power forward center. I think he has a 36% usage rate with Edwards off the floor. Should be the main guy for Minnesota offensively. And you can also play Naz Reid, I think, in cash. You obviously can't play all these guys together because they are all on the same team, but they're all viable in a great matchup. A few other guys going position by position. Point guard Trae Young. That San Antonio Atlanta game looks good. He's leading the team in usage, leading the team in assist rate. The Spurs are the best matchup on the board. So he's kind of a secondary spend along with Towns. I think that looks appealing in cash. Mm-hmm. We got news that Brandon Miller is out for the Hornets. Gordon Hayward was cheap on FanDuel the other night. He's cheap again tonight. They have no LaMelo Ball as well, so he should see a usage bump at a decent salary. You can play him at guard and forward, which is helpful. Kevon Looney at center is a decent value if you're looking to punt the position. If you're looking to pay a little more, I think Mark Williams on the same Charlotte team is in play. Brooklyn's a decent matchup. Williams is a very good point per minute guy on the season. Miles Bridges, yet another Charlotte guy that should see a boost without Miller and LaMelo. He's only 78. He's already playing huge minutes, and I think he's totally in play for cash. And again, PJ Washington, we got news that McGowan's is starting over PJ for the Hornets, but I think Washington should still see the majority of the minutes. We have him at 29. He's 5,700. I think he's another guy you can look to in cash.
I mean, you mentioned McGowan starting. He's dirt cheap, I assume. He's 3,100 on DK. Any interest there or not?
We have him at 24 minutes. He's 36 on FanDuel. I think it's fine if you really need to, but ideally, I don't really think you need to go all the way down because the spends are not that expensive. So I wouldn't go to McGowan's.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then Jimmy Butler, we have him playing Indiana is another great matchup. If you're looking to spend at one of the forward spots, I think Butler is a good way to do that. And that kind of sums up the general cash build on FanDuel.
Okay. Did you go over center? I'm sorry. Did I miss that?
Yeah. Kevon Looney is a punt. Mark Williams in the mid-range.
Gotcha.
I think that's where you're looking.
Okay. Very nice. Then let's talk tournament builds here. And I guess, Kyle, you can just kind of take it and run with it. What are your thoughts here? Is there a game you're stacking? Is there a spot you're attacking? Or you can go position by position?
Yeah, I think, real quick, based on the FanDuel build with like the salaries have come out, I do think that just with the limited amount of options above 10K, I do think the cash build and a lot of, the single entry, smaller builds are going to be, rather condensed in terms of them not creeping up towards the top. So I just think instantly you can get pretty different by, building around one of these spend ups. And there are good enough value options as well down the board in terms of salary relief that you can make do with some of the options in order to spend up top. So at the point guard position, the first one that stands out to me, I do think Taylor was on point there with Trae Young. I think he's going to be potentially the most expensive guy in cash lineups. So I think he's going to be the cash guy, but a good pivot. I know it's not necessarily a natural pivot because he's about $2,000 more, but SGA here at 11.4, really expensive here, but we have him projected as the highest scoring player on the slate. 13% projected ownership. So I like him quite a bit in terms of his viability as a contrarian play here. And again, 13% I would consider pretty contrarian on this slate for a FanDuel NBA tournament play. So instantly up top, there's two guys that stand out, SGA and Giannis, two really expensive options, but you're very quickly going to be different there. Staying at the point guard position, Tyrese Halliburton, same sort of argument as SGA, right? He's a little bit more expensive than the de facto optimal or cash guy, Trae Young. So I think you're going to be able to get some leverage there. We have him for 3% projected ownership. Not the greatest matchup there, but Miami has actually struggled this year defending the three. So could be a spot where Halliburton, hits 5-6 threes here. And he's been attempting a lot of them over his last 3 games. So don't mind taking a stab at Halliburton there at lower ownership. Those are the two main spend up guys that I think will be a little bit lower owned. Going down the board a little bit here, Terry Rozier at 7.8. We have him sub 10% projected ownership. No Rozier, no LaMelo Ball, no Brandon Miller as well, who's kind of taking up a little bit of usage, but a lot of minutes as well. So Rozier and Bridges are probably going to shoulder a lot of the load here for Charlotte. So Rozier, I think, makes some sense. I do think that guys like Bridges and Hayward are going to get some love, and that will leave Rozier a little bit off the board there as well. So those are the mid-tier options there. Mike Conley, I think, is a guy I would mention there, but I think he could also work his way into a core type play. I don't think he'll go necessarily completely overlooked there. In terms of other shooting guards, kind of pivoting over here, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's going to be the chalk. I think that playing him in tournaments makes a lot of sense. He opens up a lot of the spend-up options. He's the best value play on the board. So I wouldn't, turn away from him just because of the ownership there. I think he's a very strong play. He's kind of good at, filling up those stat categories top to bottom. So would not shy away from him due to ownership there. Like him quite a bit. Mentioned Gordon Hayward a little bit as well. He's 5'6", pretty underpriced. We have him for 34 minutes. I think he makes sense as well. In terms of some contrarian pieces, one guy that really stands out for me, who actually has shooting guard eligibility, I know TJ sort of mentioned him on his way out, DeJounte Murray. He's just a natural pivot off of Trae Young if you're not playing him. Obviously, if a lot of the field is going to go to Trae Young, I do think it'll be fairly close in terms of where people sort of go in terms of their ownership there on Young and Murray. But if it is different and you do see a discount, I should say, for Murray compared to Trae Young, I think that's a nice little pivot there. Tough matchup for Malcolm Brogdon, but at 7.8, same price as Rozier. I do prefer Rozier, but I think Brogdon is worth mentioning. He's had a ton of usage here with all the injuries over there in Portland. Moses Moody was another name that those guys mentioned on their way out as a potential value pivot option. I think he makes sense if you're not playing Nickeil Alexander-Walker. We have him for 28 minutes, so I feel like you're probably feeling a little bit more safe with NAW there, but Moody definitely still in play as well. Couple other names that make sense. D'Angelo Russell coming off the big game last night. Jalen Williams at 6K flat as well. We have him for 33 minutes. I think he makes some sense there. And then I guess the last name I'll throw out, a little bit more of an expensive option, but Donovan Mitchell here, really good matchup. Obviously, you have to worry sort of about the blowout 12-point spread right now, but if Cleveland does have a big game, Mitchell's probably going to have a hand in it. So would not mind being overweight on Mitchell there, who we have at about 2 or 3% projected ownership. For some small forward contrarian plays, I think the first one that really stands out to me is Paul George. He's just in a price range where he's a good pivot off of a couple of guys who I think are going to be pretty contrarian here, more popular with Butler and Bridges, who I think, George is just slightly more expensive than both of those guys. So I think he'll be a strong leverage play there. Looking down the board a little bit, Kyle Anderson's going to have a little bit of ownership, but I still think he's a pretty strong tournament play. He's just a guy when he's on the court, and he can definitely produce from a permanent perspective there. Sadiq Bey is $100 more than Kyle Anderson if you're looking for a pivot there, but do prefer Anderson straight up. A couple other names that stick out. Cameron Johnson, good matchup against Charlotte here. We have him for 30 minutes, 6'4" on FanDuel. He is a tournament play that I like quite a bit there. Small forward is probably not my favorite position, so I wouldn't mind just leaning into the comfort of guys like Bridges and Butler if you wanted to do so, and even Hayward, for example. But probably not my favorite position for contrarian plays, but there are a couple names that I mentioned there. Power forward is the one that I think is pretty interesting. I think Jared Allen is going to be a guy who gets some love on FanDuel. You can actually roster him at both power forward and center, which is sort of a strange thing from a positional eligibility perspective. I guess they just give Mobley both of them and call it a day. But 6'5" for Allen's a pretty cheap price tag. Good matchup against Portland. I do think, though, he'll see some ownership because of that positional qualifications there. Zach Collins at 6K, and then Karl Anthony Towns. Those are two guys that I have circled here. Obviously, Cat with no Anthony Edwards gets a nice uptick, and so far, we're not really seeing a ton of love go his way, right? We have a 12% projected ownership. He's another guy you can play at power forward and center eligibility over on FanDuel. Maybe he gets a little bit more than that, but regardless, I don't think he's going to end up being chalk on the night. So he's a guy that you could easily make a case for there, getting a boost in potential usage and shot opportunity with no Anthony Edwards, who's really taken a big step. So it's more of an increase in what he's picking up compared to last year with Edwards there. So a couple other names. Draymond is in play on FanDuel. He's a guy who can pick up some stocks, fill up the stat sheet. He's fairly priced, I would say, 5'9". I don't think you're necessarily getting a great value there, but I think he's fine. Nas Reed, same deal with all these guys sort of getting bumps for Minnesota. He's definitely one of them at 5'1", 23 minutes. He's a guy who can definitely go out there and have a 1.5 fantasy point per minute performance, though. So last name I'll mention, though, for power forward, which you can also mention for point guard, I suppose, Jeremy Sohan, who has that very rare point guard power forward eligibility, but a big fan of his as a fantasy producer there. We have him for about 30 minutes. And then for center, I think Taylor nailed it. I don't think you need to go too far off the range here in terms of center options. I think Mark Williams is a very strong play. I think Jared Allen's a really strong play. I think Looney makes sense for value options. I also like Cat, like I mentioned, for the power forward position. And then if you want to get a little bit different, I do think Bam Adebayo is going to be fairly unique here. Tyler Hero is going to add to the usage that Bam and Jimmy Butler are sort of splitting. And again, if Jimmy Butler is going to be a popular play, that likely means that people aren't going to be playing a whole lot of Bam Adebayo. So I think he makes a lot of sense tonight as well.
Okay, very good. Did you just get some news? And Dean mentioned kind of as you were starting your tournament thoughts that Royce O'Neal is out. And I know he's not exactly a usage hog by any means, but is there some impact? Somebody going to step up and get some minutes that we're interested in?
That might help Finney Smith. I think he's the one that Royce O'Neal usually kills when he comes off the bench. He's not a great per minute guy, not a great usage guy, but the minutes should definitely be solidified.
Okay. Very nice. With that, I think we should mention probably that this show is indeed sponsored by FanDuel. If I didn't already say that, it is. I didn't have my read up. We're going to talk DraftKings here in just a second. We're also, of course, going to take all your questions, so make sure you are bringing those in. In the meantime, if you bet $5 on any money line, you get $150 in bonus bets if your team wins. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Shout out to our sponsor, FanDuel. Let's dive into the DK side of things. And Taylor, I will let you kind of walk us through a cash build over there. I've got thoughts, but I want you to go first, and then I'll see if we're in a line or not here.
Yeah, I think point guard generally on this slate on DK is a position you can pay up at. Trae Young should be the chalky one. I think he's probably your first guy into cash lineups if you're like as a spend. Rozier, like Kyle said, should see more usage. Could go a little under owned in tournaments. Not totally necessary in cash, but I don't mind it either. SGA, that game against the Lakers should be close, we think. He's been awesome all season, huge usage, great per minute guy. He's more expensive than this Trae Young, Dame Lillard tier, but if you have the money, I'm totally fine with that as well. Dame, they're playing the Bulls. There's blowout risk in that game, especially with Levine out, but he's 9,100. He's playing like 37 minutes a night. I think that's a guy you can slot into cash as well. And Garland, 75 on DK, I believe. This is the game. This is the first game of the night. It's the only one that starts at 7. I think I'm more inclined to fade it and wait on news and just hope this one blows out. It does have a 12-point spread. in favor of the Cavs. But I do think Garland's fine in cash if you're looking to save a little bit from the top guys at point guard. Shooting guard, NAW, once again, he's in almost every optimal at 49. Play him at shooting guard or small forward, just like on FD. Quickly, again, is a guy you can save with. That's another game with blowout risk. The Knicks are playing the Pistons. I think the Pistons have lost 15 games in a row now. So could get ugly, but Quickly potentially benefits from that. He could get garbage time run. He's, I think, 53 on DK. Good per minute guy anyway. He's already playing decent minutes. Don't mind that as a value in cash. Bogdanovic, that Hawks Spurs game, like we said, is probably the best one to target tonight. I believe he was questionable earlier. I haven't seen news on if he's playing, but if he is, I don't mind that in the mid-range. Yet another guy you can play at guard or forward. Moses Moody, I should have mentioned on FanDuel, he's 3,900. He's a better cash play over there, but he's still fine, 43 on DK. The Warriors don't have Chris Paul, Gary Payton, or Andrew Wiggins, so he should see minutes. There's a chance he starts with Wiggins out. I think you can slot him in. I do think the Minnesota guys are better, but I think that's totally playable in cash as well. Kyle Anderson, Sadiq Bey, a couple of mid-range guys you can play at small forward, or I think Bey might be power forward only, but I think they're pretty much the same price. Both should see minutes increases with both teams dealing with injuries. DeRozan is a guy that looks better now that Levine is out, but of course DeRozan is also questionable. But if he plays, he should see most of the usage for the Bulls. Another game with blowout risk. They are playing Milwaukee, so it's not the most comfortable thing in cash, but he is cheap. I think he's 72 on DK. That's fine if you're looking to pay a little bit more at small forward. I'd rather find the money for Jimmy Butler, but DeRozan's okay. Power forward Naz Reid off the bench. I don't love it, but he's cheap. He's a good per minute guy. Minnesota's down a few starters, so it's doable. It's not my preferred way to build, but if you're looking for savings, I think Reid is fine. Kyle Anderson, once again, a power forward. Evan Mobley in that first game against the Blazers, he nuked the other night. He's always been okay per minute. The minutes are usually there. I am concerned about the blowout, like I said. But if you're looking to pay up a power forward, he's fine. I prefer Miles Bridges between the two. I think the Hornets game looks a little more attractive. I think he has been pretty good since he came back. Another guy whose minutes seem quite secure at this point. So I'm good with that in the mid-range. Karl Anthony Towns, I think you can play him at power forward or center, which makes him kind of a core play in cash games for sure. I think he and Young are the guys you're paying up for, and you're kind of filling out the rest below that. Nick Claxton is a guy that pops in projections for the Nets at center, 6,300. Good matchup for them. Decent salary. His minutes should be a bit more secure with Royce O'Neal out, I think. Mitchell Robinson, fine if you need him. Clint Capella, I do like. Spurs Hawks game. He's another guy whose minutes are sketchy at best, but he produces while he's out there. The Spurs could be without Wemby. A lot to like about that game, and he's reasonably priced. If you're not sold on that, I think Brook Lopez at a similar salary is okay. And if we get the Wemby news, if Wemby's out, Zach Collins is a guy that probably becomes close to a must play. I think he's low 64 on DK.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned Claxton. That was kind of my feel it in my plums play of the day. So I feel good that he was at least mentioned there. Let's talk tournaments here over on DK. And Kyle, I'll let you take a run at it.
Yeah, I think similar to over on FanDuel, where I do think that there's going to be, mid-range builds sort of being, relied upon. But I think there's a little bit more flexibility, cheaper options over on DraftKings can allow for some of these more expensive guys to work their way sort of into cash lineups. But I still think some of these expensive guys are being pretty overlooked. Like SGA is a little bit cheaper on DraftKings, 10.5, 12% projected ownership right now. I really like that number. SGA is probably one of my favorite plays of the night. So I like him quite a bit. Same thing goes for Bam. I do think that Butler is going to be more popular on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings, but I still think he'll be more popular than Bam on DraftKings, and that's just going to only lower Bam's potential projected ownership there. So Bam and SGA up top are two guys that I like quite a bit. I do think that Dame's going to be pretty popular over on DraftKings. I think he's going to be a sort of a cash game build. Obviously, he's just more suited for DraftKings with a 3-point boost there. So, and Chicago's been really bad at defending the 3 as well. So I do think it's a really good spot for Dame. I like him as well. Again, Trae Young, I still think it's a strong play, but just giving some alternate options at the point guard position, there is a lot of them. So if you want it to be different, want to be slightly, get some slight leverage at the point guard position, Dame and SGA can definitely help do so over Trae Young there. Already mentioned Bam as a tournament play, but same sort of position, power forward center, eligible for a cat again here. He's also, again, one of my favorite plays of the night, just, looking at who's going to be popular at the position and in that price range. And Cat isn't really one of these guys that are popping off the board. I think Mobley's the guy who right now we have projected for more ownership. Miles Bridges, not necessarily the same price, but very similar price range. I like Cat more than both of these guys, so I'll take the stab at Cat here with no Edwards and get the added leverage there. Rozier, liked him on FanDuel. Same reasoning for liking him here. I mentioned Donovan Mitchell when we were talking about FanDuel. Same thing goes for Darius Garland. I think both of these guys are in play. Garland comes into play a little bit more on DraftKings for me due to price. So him and Mitchell, I do have some interest in. I guess in terms of going position by position, I think that pretty much covers it for point guard. For shooting guard, same sort of guys. Terry Rozier, you can play at shooting guard. Paul George, you can play at shooting guard, who I mentioned while breaking down the FanDuel side. DeJounte Murray, Moses Moody as a value option, and also Troy Brown. He projects for 27 minutes for us right now, 4.2. He's been a guy who's hovered around 0.85, 0.8 fantasy point per minute in terms of a value option. He's definitely in play there, and you're going to see a lot of guys on this Minnesota side, especially on DraftKings, even more so, I think, get attention. Guys like Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, all these guys are cash viable. So Troy Brown should be a little bit lower owned than these guys here. So he makes sense as a pivot off of, even if you wanted to just pivot off of one of those guys, you could utilize Troy Brown to do so there. In terms of forwards here, touched on Paul George already. Zach LaVine's out, so you can potentially make a case for DeMar DeRozan if we get news that he's in. I don't think we've gotten official confirmation yet, but you can make a case. He's going to have very, very little ownership, and I think that in a world where we didn't have that question mark around DeMar DeRozan, he could potentially be not necessarily a chalk play, but more popular than he is going to be. So that kind of justifies the ownership edge there for DeMar DeRozan. But again, definitely something you're going to want to keep an eye out for. I think that's an 8 o'clock game there. So make sure you're monitoring that if you do so. Other names, Gordon Hayward, 6'4" on DraftKings, a little bit more expensive than you would like, but that's probably going to contribute to some lower ownership. So he's in play there with all the injuries that Charlotte's going through. In terms of power forwards, I think I covered most of them there, with my favorites being Karl-Anthony Towns as a potential tournament play. I do think Jimmy Butler is going to be fairly popular, but I do think he's going to be lower owned on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel. I think he's going to be a cash play on FanDuel, but still like him quite a bit. Sadiq Bey, I think, is going to be one of the more popular value options, but for a pivot at the same price, PJ Washington, 5'5", I like quite a bit here. Again, another guy who could potentially get hot from 3-point range and benefit from that DraftKings scoring. And then for a couple of center options, I already mentioned Bam. He's probably my favorite center tournament play, either him or Karl-Anthony Towns. But I think Victor Wembanyama is in. We just got official news that he's going to play. So I like him quite a bit as a tournament play. I just think naturally guys who are sort of game time decisions are questionable, especially on slates where there's a lot of news, are going to be lower owned. So I'll take advantage of that there. And what Taylor highlighted earlier as the highest total game on the board, both teams are seem to be allergic to defense. So Wembanyama also makes some sense as a tournament play as well. And then last name who we mentioned in the FanDuel section, we actually have even lower owned on DraftKings, Jared Allen at 6'6".
Nice. Okay. Good stuff, guys. We still have 12 minutes until lock. Taylor, is there anything you want to add in here? I'm seeing Wemby available. Do we assume that means like he's good? He's going to play?
Yeah, he'll play. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that means Collins, who I had plugged in and was like, this is my dude, he's out.
I think he's still playable, honestly.
I agree.
He does a lot. He plays a lot, assuming they don't get blown out, which is always a risk with them.
Yeah,
but
right. Okay.
It does have, I think it's like a 7.5 point spread, so it's not too bad.
Yeah. All right, let's dive into some of these QQs. Of course, I'm starting on the RotoGrinders Discord. That is where the cool kids are hanging out. We'll start with a FanDuel cash question. And Taylor, I will give this one to you. Slow-mo or Collins?
I'd go Collins if you have the money, which I assume you do because you're asking.
Okay. Fit Crook says DK Cash, Rozier Mitchell or Moody Towns? Taylor, Rozier Mitchell or Moody Towns?
I'd go Moody Towns.
All right. This question from Carolina guy is simply, does Cam Thomas have a minutes restriction?
I think we had him at 27 when I looked earlier. He's been out for a while. We have him at 26. So
is this his first game back?
Yeah, he's overpriced for the role he should play.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think we've seen an official minutes limit, like anything publicly stated, but I think we're just sort of assuming there based on his absence there. I will say, though, maybe Royce O'Neal being out gives him a slight tick, but I wouldn't be counting on a ton of minutes here.
Gotcha. All right. Kyle, FanDuel GPP, Max T-Wolves you'd put in a lineup.
So this definitely depends on, did he say the site by any chance? FanDuel
He
or
did say
DraftKings?
FanDuel, yes.
Okay. So I think it's a little bit more difficult to jam a ton of them in on FanDuel compared to over on DraftKings. But I guess I would say the max would probably be 3 for me. But you can definitely make a case for 4, especially if you want to be over the field on Karl-Anthony Towns. But I would say 3.
Okay. Sean says, Kyle, no pressure, but I need a small forward, 6,200 and under. This is FanDuel. So pull up FanDuel small forward, 6,200 and under, that will put up 40 plus FanDuel points tonight. Let's go.
Oh, that's tough. I guess I'm gonna go with Gordon Hayward here, 5'6". You get a little bit of added salary that maybe you can maneuver with there as well. But just missed the cut on Cam Johnson, who I do like. But I think Gordon Hayward's got pretty similar ceiling, so I'll go with Hayward.
Very nice. Okay, excellent stuff. We'll go to NBA DFS FanDuel cash question. Taylor, back to you. McGowan's and Zach Collins or Moody and Slow-Mo? Kyle Anderson.
Second one for me.
Okay. FanDuel cash, right back to you here. DeJounte, Slow-Mo or Harden Collins, parentheses, I have Trey already.
DeJounte, Slow-Mo or Harden and Collins. I think I like the first one a little more.
Okay. D-Rock says, Kyle, DKGPP, last piece in the util. He's got $5,700 left, and he says there's kind of a lot of guys that he doesn't really have a lean on. So there's a lot of guys there in that range. I don't know if they're good or all bad, but they're all similar. Yeah,
there's a good amount of options there. I think PJ Washington's probably my favorite, but you can also make a case for Sadiq Bey if you like him a little bit more. Even Clint Capella is fine, I think, but I think my final answer would be PJ Washington.
That is about where I keep landing, and that is who I keep landing on. So I'm with you on that. Gamble says, how many Hornets would you play in a FanDuel single entry, possible jeopardizing no Braun news? I don't really understand the second part of that, but how many Hornets would you play in FanDuel single entry? Kyle?
Yeah, so we still have LeBron waiting on. We're waiting on the news. They gave us Anthony Davis news, and they gave us some pieces of news for the Lakers, but not LeBron. So maybe there's a little bit of added issue there with LeBron. I still think he plays, but I would say the max Hornets I would look to play is probably still going to be 2, just because of the fact that you're probably not playing Williams and Washington together. And I think that Rozier is a pivot off of Bridges. I guess you can make a case if you wanted to go one of the big men, Hayward, and then one of Rozier and Bridges. But I think for safety reasons and keeping yourself open to some news, I would say 2.
Okay, excellent. Did get some news here from Dean. Shout out to Dean, who's still hanging out with us, helping out in the chat. Kelly O is in and Clarkson is out. Is that anything that we're excited about? Taylor, you care about Clarkson
pretty
being
big
out?
Just because it's a lot of usage with Markkanen also out. We got Agbaji starting for him. He's 4.6 on both sites. He's not a good per minute guy. I think Sexton and THT might be the big winners off the bench. They're both they get more usage than Agbaji. They just also might get wrecked. Like they're super shorthanded. They're on a back-to-back. But the problem with Sexton and THT is they're not exactly cheap. They're both over 5K on DK and around it on FanDuel. So I think it's more of a tournament thing than a cash thing.
Okay. Kyle, any interest in those guys?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty big bump for THT. He's a guy. I know he's been extremely frustrating pretty much his entire career when we want to play him. But I'm excited to see where the ownership actually lands. Keontae George is also pretty interesting. We've already seen him getting a boost in minutes just in general, and then obviously with Markkanen being out, and he's handled more usage. And now with Clarkson, I mean, this was a team that was pretty much centered around Clarkson with that starting five. So this could be a big bump for George as well. So I would say the guys who get the biggest bump are THT, Sexton, and then George. Agbaji will get a good minutes bump, but I don't think he's a high usage player pretty much regardless of Clarkson being in or out. So probably not counting on a ton of usage for him, but good amount of minutes here.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Let's get back to the QQs here. DK Cash question from Fit Crooks. Taylor, you want Quickly Bridges or Mobley Bay?
Quickly Bridges or Mobley Bay? I think I'd go Quickly Bridges, but both are pretty appealing.
Okay. FanDuel single entry Kyle. Which bridge are you crossing, or do you prefer to roster both?
That's a very unique question there. I think the safest bridge to cross there is probably going to be Miles Bridges, but McCall Bridges is also in play as well. I think the appeal for him is if Cam Thomas is limited to like fewer than 25 or 26 minutes, that's where Bridges will be able to capitalize on more usage, but I'll take Miles Bridges.
Okay, nice. Alex says, DK Cash, Taylor, back to you here. Any love for Julius Randle? And P.S. the line in the Lakers OKC game makes me think that LeBron is sitting. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, the fact that we didn't get LeBron news already kind of worries me. I think there's a chance he might sit, whereas it seems like for 2 weeks just had a fake questionable tag. So
right,
definitely keep an eye on that. I don't think you need Randall in cash. He's kind of pricey. He does project well. He does a good matchup against the Pistons, and the Knicks kind of play their guys no matter what. So if you must, I don't mind it. But Towns, I think, is a similar price and should be the guy you play in cash over him.
That makes sense. All right. Big DK GPP. Kyle, you want Cat or Wemby in a big GPP?
In a big one, I think I'll go Wemby. I think Wemby will be a little bit more contrarian. I do think that they honestly at this point probably have similar ceilings, maybe give a slight edge to Cat with no Edwards, but I think Wemby might be a little bit lower owned just because of that Q tag being around all day.
Yeah. Okay. Alex says, are we worried about Minnesota blowing out Utah with all of these players out? This is kind of a general strategy question, but Minnesota's without their guy too, right?
Yeah, they don't have Edwards or McDaniels. Yeah, they're both shorthanded. So, but I think you just play them because they're cheap in cash. Tournaments you can fade.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the guys that you are playing in cash are just going to be able to get there even on limited minutes, but just because of the price tags. But I would still be fairly concerned about the blowout. It's still 11-point spread right now.
Okay. We'll go to Sean. He says, Claxton at center and a FanDuel GPP, or am I a big smelly loser for playing him? I am playing him too, so I hope I am not a big smelly loser. Any interest in Claxton, FanDuel GPP, Kyle?
Yeah, I think Claxton's fine, especially with some of the guys out here. Royce O'Neal, that's going to add to some potential bump in rebound usage. I personally think there's a couple of guys I like a little bit more, Jarrett Allen and Mark Williams being the two names that pop out, but Claxton could easily be lower owned than both of those guys. So, yeah, Claxton definitely in the player pool.
Okay, great stuff. We'll go to Aside is 4. That's probably T-Wolves too much. It's an emoji, but it's probably a T-Wolf. Is 4 T-Wolves too much for FanDuel Cash tonight, Taylor, or should I keep it to 3 and ditch slow-mo?
Slow-mo. I think in FanDuel Cash, you're thinking Conley, NAW, Towns, and slow-mo. I'm fine with all of them. Yeah, I don't have any qualms with that.
Great. We'll go to D-Rock's question. If LeBron gets ruled out, do we immediately go jam in AD and Reeves? And I guess I'll call that a cash question. Like, is that an optimal strategy?
AD is going to pop a lot more. He's 10-9 on FanDuel. I think he's 10-6 on DK, or 10-2 on DK. So I think I'm more inclined to play him in tournaments. He is pretty expensive. If LeBron doesn't play, there's a chance they just get rolled. So I'd be a little concerned. And Reeves, I'm not sold on either. I'm just not super into Lakers, even without LeBron.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump into the YouTube chat. By the way, hit us a little thumbs up. Free content, answering your questions here. Let's go to Darren in the YouTube chat. FanDuel cash question, Taylor. Reed Wemby or Collins DeRozan?
Reed Wemby or Collins DeRozan? I'd go Reed Wemby because we don't know if DeRozan's playing yet.
Okay. Take John's question here. This is a DK question. Kyle, I'm going to give it to you. Also, shout out to John for asking folks to smash the like button. Do as John says. Capella, Claxton, or Allen? Capella, Claxton, or Allen? He's already got Mobley.
If you already have Mobley, probably not overly interested in pairing him with Allen. I don't think these guys correlate terribly, but it's just in a big tournament, you don't necessarily need to do that. And then so I would go Claxton there.
Okay, great. Coffee says, is Ayo DeSumo viable? Ayo, single entry tournament, FanDuel, or Shake Milton? So Ayo or Shake Milton?
For me personally, I'm still not thrilled about Ayo DeSumo, but I'm also not overly thrilled about Shake Milton either. So I guess I would go Ayo if I had to pick between those two.
Okay, that's fair. We got less than 2 minutes until lock here. DK cash question, Taylor. Who is more likely to fail, Bam or Mitchell?
I like Bam more in general. Mitchell has a good matchup, but Bam against Indiana is one of the better matchups in the whole league. I think Mitchell's more likely to fail just because that game's more likely to blow up.
Okay, great answer. We'll go to Beaner's question here. He just says, I guess I don't know who this is for. So will you fade the Wolves guys in tournaments?
I'm personally not fading them. I don't think you need to fade them by any means. I think that there's definitely ways to get different if you want to do so, but you can definitely don't need to fade them.
Okay, great. Snowfighter says, thanks guys, you are a lot of help. Yeah, we tried to be. Thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Let's see. We just about caught up on all the questions. I think we got a Josh Giddey question here. And is he? I assume he's playing.
He was cheap on DK, but his minutes are weird and not sure what's going on there. In a tournament, for sure, in cash, there's no way you play him.
Okay. Rukin Verde says, Kyle, is it silly to play Tybal in a large field DK GPP? And then I think he's basically saying the game type against Cleveland fits his game style.
Yeah, that was the one game I just locked at 7. So I mean, I don't think it's the worst play. Like I personally didn't get to any Tybal today, but we have him for 26 minutes, so he's going to be out there. And if the game is going up and down, maybe you can rack up some stocks. But I think there were better value plays out there.
Okay. We've got one last question here. Wemby or Bam, FanDuel GPP. Kyle, who do you got? Wemby v. Bam.
I'm going to go Bam slightly there. Really good matchup. And this game is actually, with a 4-point spread here, we could see this be, this could honestly be the fantasy game of the night. So I'll take Bam there.
Excellent. Good stuff, guys. We've hit the lock. We got a lot of people saying thanks. A lot of people saying good luck. And to that, we say thanks and good luck to you as well. We are going to bounce on out of here. So for Kyle and for Taylor and for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love it. And we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crushed.